Hi everyone, Kayla here, one of your professors at English Without Borders, and today I am here to give you some tips on formal English. This can be something that is intimidating for non-native speakers. We never want to make a mistake, especially in a formal setting. So while mistakes are okay, today I am going to give you a couple of pieces of advice on how to address people formally in English so that you can make sure your first impression is a good one. So let's get started. The first term we will talk about is the most universal, Mr. So Mr. is what we use to talk about any man, whether he is single or married. Okay, we can talk about any man referring to him as Mr. The only case where it is not as common is with children. With children, we normally refer to a young boy by his first name. However, there may be cases where a grandfather or a professor or someone of a higher status will call a young boy Mr. followed by his last name. Okay? The second title that we will be addressing is Mrs. So Mrs. is exclusively used for a married woman. So if a woman is not married, you will not use this, okay? Mrs. is only for if you know for sure that a woman is married. The third term, Miss. Miss is what we call a single woman or a young woman. So a young girl could be called Miss so-and-so. So this is exclusively for single young women. The fourth term, Ms. So Ms. is what we can use to refer to someone if we do not know if they are a Miss or a Mrs., okay? We do not want to make a mistake with this because it can be embarrassing for someone to have to correct you and change their title. So if you are not sure if someone is married or not, please go by the term Ms. Okay, you could call me Ms. Belush if you do not know whether I am married or not. Now, if you call someone Ms. and they are actually a Mrs., don't worry. If you say Ms., you give them the opportunity to correct you and say, actually, it's Mrs. And you say, oh, okay, Mrs. Belush, for example. But it is way more awkward or uncomfortable if you call me Mrs. and I have to explain that I am actually a Miss. So it's always safe to go with Ms. and not Miss or Mrs. if you are not sure. Now be careful with the difference between Miss and Ms. when you are pronouncing these words because they do sound similar. The only sound that is different is the sound at the end. In Ms., the S at the end makes the Z sound, like a Z. Okay, this is a voiced S. So if we put our hands here, we can feel that when we make the sound, our throat vibrates. So Ms., Ms. Now if I say Miss, this is an unvoiced S. You will notice that this unvoiced S does not have any vibration in the throat. It is just S. And if you put your fingers here, you can feel S. No vibration compared to Ms., where you do feel vibration. So careful with your pronunciation on that. Another thing we want to be aware of is to always use a more formal title for someone if they have it. For example, if someone is a professor, we can call them professor followed by their last name, or we can say doctor if someone is a doctor. These are important titles that people work really hard for, so they appreciate when you call them by their title. If, however, someone wants you to speak to them more informally, then when you say, "Hi, Dr. Smith, nice to meet you," Dr. Smith may tell you, "Oh, please call me Jack." And then you know he wants to be on more informal or comfortable terms with you. We want to be sure as well to use people's last names when speaking with their titles. For example, if my name is John Smith, I am Mr. Smith. Or Miss Smith or Mrs. Smith or Ms. Smith. That is the more formal way of doing it. And my last and final tip for you is to be aware that if you start a conversation, you start this first impression by being formal with formal titles and referring to me, for example, as Ms. Belush or Miss Belush, then the following words that you say should be equally polite and formal as well. For example, I receive many messages from people who want extra help with their English. So sometimes I see that they don't know how to properly ask for this help. So maybe they say, "Hi, Miss Belush," and they address me formally, but the following sentence is, "You need to help me with my English." So if we start by speaking to someone formally, and then we do not follow that by using polite questions, polite requests, or polite suggestions, then that makes my brain explode. I'm like, what? Wait? And I read the message again, and I see this mixture of formal and informal, which seems very strange. This is a natural thing to make a mistake on, so if you have done this in the past, do not worry. We understand that it is because you are finding a balance in the English language between informal and formal language. Just be aware as you move forward on how to correct this. That's all for today, guys. Thank you for joining me. Be sure to jump on to our live Zoom classes every week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays on the English Without Borders group. Can't wait to see you there and get to know you better. Happy learning!